Hi everyone and welcome to the last section of this Python course for beginners. In this section, we would be learning about object-oriented programming, and we would be shifting our focus from the procedural approach to object-oriented approach. So procedural approach is when you use things like functions to do stuff, while in object-oriented programming, now we would be focusing completely towards object-oriented stuff. So let's first understand what object-oriented programming is. So an object is like a dictionary. It's not exactly a dictionary, but it's like a dictionary where it has certain characteristics. Let's say you want to make an application which deals with a lot of employees, and employees are each represented in a dictionary like object where they have their name, their salary, their age, etc. mentioned. Now, it would be inconvenient to declare it again and again and write properties for each employee. So what we can do is we make a constructor. A class is like a pattern for making something. Let's say you have a preset for building a PC, right? You need 7 components and nothing changes there. What changes is what components you use. No matter what you do, you would need a minimum of 7 components to build a PC. That's the absolute necessity. So a class is like a blueprint for objects to be created. So first we would have to create classes, and then we would learn how to create objects from that. Let's learn how you can create a class. So you just use the keyword class, and then you write the name of the class. Now the convention states that the name of the class always begins with a capital letter, and it's written in Pascal case, which means that every new word is started with a capital letter. So for example, this is Pascal case, and this is camel case. I hope this made it clear for you. So we'll have to create a class, and let's just go with our example and create a class employee, and then you use colon, and then here you specify all the methods. Methods are functions that act specifically on that class. So let's create a method, and we will call it show employee data, and this would take self as an argument. Now do not worry about the self keyword, we would be diving into it later, but just consider that this isn't there, but this is absolutely compulsory to accept self whenever you're dealing with classes. So any method you construct would always take self as an argument, and we'll say print, let's say the name is John, ages. We're just hard coding it right now, but you absolutely do not need to do that because we would be using constructors later. Age is 39 and salary is something like $20,000. And let's try to call this method. So show employee data, and we're just going to run it, but there's an error. It says show employee data is not defined, while if you see here, it is indeed defined. But the problem is that whenever you're dealing with methods, you always need to specify the parent class. So you have to tell employee dot show employee data. Why is this giving me an error? The reason it gave me an error is because show employee data belongs to the employee class, and these methods can only be called on objects. Now to create an object, all you need to do is you say object, or the name of the variable, whatever you want to call it. I'm calling it obj is equal to employee and then round brackets. So this way you create an employee object here, and we can run the method employee.show employee data on this. Now when I run it, it says John 39 and 20,000 because that is all the data that we have right now. Now let's learn that how can you create an object with custom data rather than just having static stuff. So the way you do that is using a special constructor. We have a special method in a class called the constructor, and it is written as init. Init means initialize, so we use init. And here you need to pass some variables. So the first one is obviously self. So this function is called anytime you create an object. So I'll just show it to you. Print new object created, and now if I run it, it says new object created since I have obj being created once. And if I copy it over a bunch of times, and I'll just have to change the name of these variables, and if I run it, you see 5 times this method has been run. Now what we can do here is that we can make certain variables like certain keys for our object. So I told you an object is pretty similar to a dictionary, and in a dictionary you have keys and you have associated values. So what we can do now is that we can create these keys and values ourselves. So what we would do is we would say we are also going to pass name, age, salary, and gender. Let's just say we are passing that. And here in employee, we are going to have to pass, whenever it's being created, we'll have to pass all of that too. So name is John, age is, let's say, 39, salary is $20,000, and gender is M. Now here let's set those variables for the object. So the way you do that is you say self. Now let's understand what self is. Actually, when you make a call, you are actually passing one extra variable, which is the object. So self is the object. So you know, in JSON you can access stuff using the dot and you write the key. So variable dot and then you set the value equal to something else. So a lot of you who are familiar with JavaScript would catch this right on. So self, we're saying object, and then we are setting a key, which is name, is equal to name, which is being passed here. Self dot age is equal to age. So we are saying that set a key for the object which is equal to the age which is being passed. So self dot salary is equal to salary, and self dot gender is equal to gender. Now let's also create a function which generates their user email. So def generate email. Oops. And we have to obviously accept self here. And we can say return, and I'll use a formatted string here. Let's say the email is formatted like name@company.com. So we can just say self.name at company.com. And what we can do here is we can create their email. So we'll say self.email email is equal to self.generate email, and when I run it, everything should work perfectly. Now let's print the obj out and let's see what's contained inside it. So you see when I run it, it says that obj is an object and it gives us a pointer for that object. Now we want to access certain parts of information from that. So we can obviously do it here, but it's always better to have such stuff written in the methods. So we'll say def show info, and it would obviously take self as a parameter. So let's just print out all the information. Print self dot name, self dot age, self dot salary, self dot gender, and self dot email. So now to show the data, let's call obj dot show info. So once I call this method, I would be able to see the data. It says John 39, $20,000, male, and john@company.com. So that was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I would see you in the next one. Goodbye.